Good morning, Mojave fans. We are excited to be live with Jerry Eisinger this morning with Cedar and the Director of ManageClean. Jerry, thanks for being on this morning.
Oh, thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it.
So we are looking at kind of continuing off from our last video is just the software and the items that we need to be looking at to be able to grow and scale our business. So we all know that there's software out there, there's functionality out there that we can employ that's going to be a huge benefit to our business. So Jerry is coming on and we're going to talk about another piece of that software in the ManageClean portion. But before we get there, Jerry, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit about your background and your resume?
Sure, thanks. So again, my name is Jerry Eisinger with Sador US. Personally, I've been in the information technology industry for the vast majority of my career, about 28 years, maybe even a little more than that, if I have to admit to that. And again, primarily in even though it's in information technology, I've been a consultant most of my career. So part of that has been, going into different industries and different businesses and understand how things work. And that's really how we got involved with the commercial cleaning industry. So for the last 10 years or so, we've been having with commercial cleaning customers, understanding their business problems, understanding what they're going through. And that's really where ManageClean came from. And so with that experience of dealing with different customers in that industry, we've developed the ManageClean solution. So at Sador, I'm now the business director of the Business One practice, which is an SAP product. And from that, we've developed a ManageClean, and I'm the product manager for the ManageClean product. So that's kind of at a high level where I've been.
No, and I appreciate that, and obviously a robust career. 28 years. I'm sure you're still learning things that you never thought you'd be learning. So
absolutely, yep. Every all the time. We run into all kinds of different customer problems, and again, that's the challenge of helping to solve those kinds of things, and really enjoy doing that.
Right. Well, and again, I appreciate you being on. So you mentioned that you guys spent a lot of time studying the problems, especially associated with commercial cleaning and building solutions around that. And so you and I have had a couple of conversations about that from a high level 30,000 foot view. What were some of the problems that you were finding that you worked to address in this software arena?
Sure. So what we found is in a lot of instances is that the commercial cleaning company typically starts on the small side and grows, and that's probably typical of every business. And one of the primary tools that people use to run their business is an accounting system like QuickBooks or Peachtree or something of that nature. And when a company first starts out, using an accounting system obviously is a great idea. Unfortunately, an accounting system is just that. It typically only does accounting. And so then as you grow, additional issues start to come into play. Or even just a matter of companies where they need to have recurring invoices for all of the services that they're performing every month, and they want to automate that. And then maybe you get some, additional things that you might do, special services and those types of things. And now we got to make sure that we're billing the customer for those types of things. And a lot of the standalone software like QuickBooks is not really good at doing a lot of those things. So there's the issue of just the basics of just running the business, billing your customers, paying vendors, and that's really I think where a lot of it, where ManageClean comes into play, and why we developed some of the stuff we did, was all around the invoicing of customers and the payment of vendors who might be performing the work for you. And then there's a lot of other issues that start to come into play as for commercial cleaners. You're buying products, you have cleaning supplies that you need to manage, and the inventory of those things, and so then you start buying additional things to go along with that software as you start to grow. And then you have the issue of your cleaners out in the field, and how do you schedule them, and how do you do inspections, and how does all that stuff come together. And so what we find is that companies tend to buy point solutions is what we call them. They have their QuickBooks for their accounting. Then maybe they'll get a mobile application for handling some of the stuff in the field. Then maybe they'll buy a warehouse management or an inventory system to help with QuickBooks, and now you've got a bunch of systems that don't talk to each other. And so now when you start looking at how do you run your business, how do you manage all of this when you've got 5 different systems, each one does its own thing, they don't talk to each other. And then you start to lose control of things. So processes become real inefficient. And if you want to grow, then you need to hire people to run those inefficient processes. And then margins start to go out the window, and you start to become expensive to run the business. So those are the kinds of problems that certainly we saw, and what we were hoping to solve with a single solution that could bring all those things together, where you could manage all that underneath one roof. And almost all the companies said the same thing. I don't know if I'm making money at each location or not. So how do you know that? And the only way you can know that is to have all that information brought together back into your accounting system. Even though a lot of the stuff is just regular business practices, how do I bring all that stuff back into my accounting system, and then run a profit and loss by location to know that I'm actually making money? Because obviously, you have to quote those jobs, you have to bid those jobs, you have to win them, you have to be competitive. And how do you know if you're making money or not? And that's really, I guess, the main goal of all of this is to help you run your business better, bring all that together, and let you see how things are shaking out in the end.
Well, and that's key, because that data, that information is always going to be the most important thing that you can bring into your business. Because I remember when I was first starting out in business, full disclosure, I was young, and I didn't value especially accounting software, but I didn't value as much of this software technology that I should have. And I'm happy to say that was over a decade ago, so I've learned my lesson. But but really, once I did realize how important it was through hitting my head against a brick wall a couple of times, that's when we implemented accounting software and some of these other tools that you've been talking about, and really took off. So and that's a lot of our followers are going to be in a similar boat. They're going to be smaller businesses that they know about. They know about accounting software and how important it is. They have a cursory knowledge of SFM, FSM, field service management software, some of these other tools. And so what you've essentially done is you've combined them all under one system to be able to talk to each other. Did I kind of summarize that correctly?
Yep. Very, very, very well. Thank you.
Okay. And so why that's important is because as you grow and as you scale, like you said, you're going to need this data to make informed decisions. A lot of times when we're first starting out in the cleaning business, we tend to take on whatever clients we can because it's revenue. We need revenue. But as we build and we grow, we have to know how to properly increase those clients year over year so that they stay profitable. So if their needs have changed and their the size and the operation, the scope has changed, then we need to be able to track that and respond accordingly. So you and I have talked, and we know that your solution, ManageClean, is not the solution for every business. We know that there's kind of that sweet spot. So starting out, QuickBooks, an FSM software, a CRM software, those are going to be needed, and we're probably going to have to piece those together in the beginning. How should we be setting up those different tools to be able to, once we reach that point, scale into a software like yours?
And again, it's a great question and exactly when do you make that move? I mean, that's, it's different for everybody. So there's unfortunately not a script I can hand over that says here's exactly how to do that. But certainly the idea is it's companies that are growing. And I think that any company can get to a certain size with with point solutions. Again, if I go back and use that terminology, and you'll do just fine. It will be, you can, it's small enough to where you can still do your invoicing out of a standard QuickBooks system. You can still pay your bills out of a standard QuickBooks system. And then maybe you have, you start looking at other systems for, let's just say, managing your cleaners in the field, and you might have a timekeeping system that you've implemented to know when they're, what jobs they're on for how long, and those types of things. And again, all of that can work until you get to a certain size, and then you have to start saying, oh geez, we're overwhelming all of our administrative people, and you think about, now I need to hire another person, to do administrative work. Well, administrative work doesn't pay the bills, unfortunately. That's a cost to the business, and that's really when you need to start thinking about, okay, well, do I need to start looking at something more integrated? Because that's really one of the values we see, is that our customers are able to grow and not increase the size of their administrative staff, because we have efficient processes for managing the back office, for managing the accounting, for managing the inventory, for purchasing, and all that kind of stuff. And so if you can stay efficient in how you manage that stuff, then you can keep the overhead of the company lower, and and then that basically allows for the streamlined processes, and it really enables your growth. So if you have those things and they're not efficient, it's at some point in time it's going to hold you back, and that's where the efficient processes and systems can come into play, and then allow you to grow without adding all that additional overhead.
Okay. So if I were to kind of timeline this out, having been a BSC before myself. So obviously, when you start out the first couple of years, first year or two at least, as the business owner, I'm gonna be wearing all of those hats. So I'm gonna be doing the admin piece, I'm gonna be doing the sales and marketing piece, and oftentimes I'm gonna be doing the operations piece of it too, at least to some extent.
Right.
There comes a point in every business, and I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who's actually in the restoration business, and we were talking about how much field work he's having to do. And I said, you are costing your company growth because you're out in the field. And so the same principle applies here. As soon as you can, especially if admin's not in your wheelhouse, then you need to be bringing somebody on who understands the administrative side, and they take over all of those day-to-day and periodic tasks from an administrative standpoint. Because if you're doing them, and especially if it's not your wheelhouse, you're costing your business money. So I'm a BSC. I've handed over my administrative day-to-day to another person, and now that individual is starting to get taxed. We're running out of bandwidth with that individual.
Yeah.
When we look at software like ManageClean, when you guys are looking at it, and again, it's going to vary business to business, right? But how many administrative staff should I have, or should I kind of target alongside of ManageClean to be able to run that piece of the business?
Boy,
Does that question make sense?
It does. Really hard one to answer, though. I can only go off of what we've seen, and as I mentioned, and again, for security reasons, I can't give names of our customers and things of that nature, but I can use examples from their businesses. And again, we have a fairly large customer down in North Carolina, about a $16 million commercial cleaner. So they're pretty good size commercial cleaner. And basically they're able to handle the back office operations, which includes, again, all the purchasing and invoicing of customers, payment of vendors, all of that type of stuff. And they're doing that with a staff of 3 people. And they were 3 people when they were $8 million, and they're still 3 people. And that's really been the difference, was, that and when we talked to them about, using them as case studies and whatnot, I mean, that's really that's really where they saw the value, was they were able to double the size of the company basically and not add administrative overhead. So where is the magic number? I don't know. For them, it was 3. If you're smaller than that, it still might be 3. But it's hard to say exactly where it's at. But no question, it's not like we're talking about that you need a staff of 50 people before you'd consider something like this. It can provide value for a pretty small company.
Okay. And so is there, kind of to piggyback off that question, is there a revenue level that you guys see where this starts really making sense?
Yeah, again, I mean, our software is, we're not the discount software on the block. So, we're not out there trying to be the lowest cost provider. And again, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but the idea is, our product is based off of a product called SAP Business One. And SAP, if you're not familiar with the company, is one of the largest, well, it is the largest enterprise resource planning company in the world. SAP Business One is a product that's designed for the small mid-sized market. Even at that, it's not an inexpensive product. So so certainly a startup company is probably going to have trouble affording us. But it's really it's the companies that are growing who are looking to make that move, and for a period of time, you're going to be okay with the smaller solutions. But when you start looking at growing, then you're going to want to look at that. And so certainly you need to be more than $1 million in revenue, I would guess, as a very minimum. Most of our customers are in the $4 to $5 million range or higher in revenue.
Okay. And that's a good kind of target, because as we're looking at that, right, I'm just thinking, okay, about my businesses, because if I've got to manage all of those pieces separately as you grow and scale, it's very easy for one administrative staff member to get just completely overwhelmed with accounting and expenses and those kinds of things. And then another one to focus on your CRM, and then another one to focus on your FSM. And so I can see where, as you grow and scale, you're not going to, like you say, you're not going to want to add on administrative staff because they don't make you money. You're going to want to add on systems that you can keep costs consistent with, and be able to scale your business. So that's good to know. So we've kind of touched on it, but I haven't specifically asked the question, and so I wanted to see if there was anything else you wanted to add to this. But what are some of the signs that a commercial cleaning company it's time to switch over?
Yep. Yeah. So again, we talked a little bit about the workload on the administrative staff, and when that stuff starts to get bigger. But the other thing we also see is that a commercial cleaning company, in a lot of cases, doesn't remain just a commercial cleaning company. As I mentioned, they might start selling supplies. Certainly in the last couple of years, with COVID, a lot of the commercial cleaners have also become product distributors, selling PPE and additional cleaning supplies have gone through the roof. And so more than just commercial cleaning, they've almost become distributors of cleaning supplies and PPE. And again, and if you don't have a system that can manage all of that stuff, it's you're not gonna be very good at it. The introduction of e-commerce. What if you start selling through a website? How do you take those e-commerce orders into your system? And and so I guess my point is that as these companies are growing, they may not be just growing the commercial cleaning part of the business. They might actually also be getting into new lines of business that are related. So distribution, again, that's one that we see quite regularly. Distribution of cleaning supplies and now PPE have become real big. And so again, to have a system that you can just grow and continue to bring these different lines of businesses and not have to start all over, not have to go buy another point solution. That's, again, I think a big advantage as well of ManageClean, is that because it's based on SAP Business One already does those things. We have hundreds of customers who do distribution. We have hundreds of customers who manage inventory and do all that stuff. And with ManageClean, being based on SAP Business One, we can grow with the commercial cleaner to handle all kinds of different lines of industries that they might grow into over time.
Okay. No, and just again, to kind of piggyback off that, one of the things, so if speaking directly to our commercial and residential cleaners, if you have clients, you should already be selling, especially commercial clients, you should already be selling, toilet paper, paper towels, hand soap, those kinds of things. And if you're not doing that, that's one thing that you need to look into. Find a supplier of those things and start talking to your customers for add-on sales. You can do the same thing on the residential side. If you find high quality products that you would want to use and you're already coming to their house on a regular basis, then try and add on those services. So that's one less thing at Costco or Walmart that they have to buy and think of. They just know it's always there, right? So So that's a really good reminder for our customers. If you're not doing that, you should be already. And then the PPE piece of it, and related products, then that's just another revenue stream that you can add on. So really good advice there. And I just wanted to kind of highlight that in case you guys missed that. Add-on sales, huge. And software like ManageClean really does a good job of handling that, tracking it, being able to order it, being able to supply it, and being able to invoice for it, all of those things. So segue, I don't know, before we segue, is there anything on the overall 30,000 foot view, uh, you know, what problem this type of software solves? Is there anything that we didn't hit from your perspective?
I really haven't touched much on what goes on with the cleaners themselves, but again, we do have mobile applications that also address the issue of what's going on in the field. So your cleaners, when they check into a location, again through mobile apps, through dial-in numbers, we have ways of managing all the check-in, check-out. Geofencing to make sure that folks are actually where they're supposed to be. If they didn't check in, you can, that. So, when you set up a schedule for a particular location, if somebody doesn't show up, that they didn't show up, or they didn't check in at least, and you can check into what's going on there. Handling task lists, again, when I get there, what are they supposed to do? What tasks are they supposed to perform? You can set that up by each room within a floor, each floor within, the building, and you can map all that kind of stuff out. And you can also then, from a quality perspective, create inspection sheets and do, and have, maybe you have a project manager who drops in a couple times a week and does an inspection to make sure all the work's being done. So there's that whole other realm of not just the back office, but also managing, what's going on out in the field. And, a lot of times out there, there might be situations where you're asked to do additional work that's not part of your contract. Maybe they want some carpets cleaned or some appliances cleaned or something like that. Again, integrating that back into the ManageClean solution so that you get paid for those things. So if you're doing work, above and beyond your monthly contract, you can define those in the mobile app, and those will flow into ManageClean to make sure you're billing for those correctly. And again, finding out if you're profitable or not. So in the end, it's capturing all the costs, all the revenue, from all the different sources where it may come from, and integrating that into a single solution so that you can then, in the end, are you making money? I mean, it's easy to look at a profit and loss for the overall company and say, are we making money or not? But how do you know you're making money at each location, and are you making the right amount of money? If you bid a project to be a X% profit margin, are you really hitting that? Again, we have all the information being collected from the field and from the back office to be able to determine that.
Okay. So really, software like yours bridges a couple, because I'm a simple guy. We talked about that. I look at business, especially the cleaning and restoration businesses, just kind of like a three-legged stool, right? A cliche example, but it works for me. So you've got administration, you've got operations, and you've got sales and marketing, which I understand are different disciplines, but same leg of the stool, right?
Sure.
And so really, software like yours is going to be able to help manage, at the very least, which is amazing, the admin and the operations side of the house completely. Is there anything like a CRM that software like this, and yours specifically, includes as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so in the field, and just to give you an idea of again, our approach to this was, when you look at the mobile application, what goes on out in the field, that's a whole different ballgame than what's going on in the back office. And we actually partnered up with a company called Clean Smarts. And so I'm going to give a plug for Clean Smarts right now. So they're our partner in the field, basically. And so we use their mobile app for everything that's going on in the field. And we're integrated with that so that the stuff that's happening out there, can flow back into ManageClean as necessary. and it reduces or eliminates all the redundant data entry. So if you create a location, in ManageClean, for example, it creates the location in Clean Smarts. So that, we've eliminated the double entry. But the big thing is that in the Clean Smart solution, from a CRM perspective, there's a whole feature in there of communications where cleaners can communicate to each other. They can communicate to their project managers or back to the main office. And there's also ways to communicate to the customer. So there's a whole, again, an extensive chatting type function that allows for that type of communication. And then within the ManageClean solution itself, there's also, part of the standard SAP Business One, there's a CRM, customer relationship management module that allows you then to, to track the communications between, your customers and your vendors. And so, yeah, there's, CRM is native for both products.
Okay. No, and that's fantastic because, with point solutions, you have to jump back and forth between. Sometimes they talk well with each other. Sometimes they don't talk well. Sometimes they don't talk at all. And
Right.
so double entry, you could imagine if your bandwidth is already used up for your administrative staff, and now you're having to make them do things twice, or your salespeople or your supervisors and managers on the operations side, you're just killing your proficiency and ultimately your profitability. So having a system that fully integrates and speaks to itself in all three platforms is really good. Well, perfect. So tell me about ManageClean. What we may have missed so far, and I know we've hit on a lot, but tell me about ManageClean and why you feel this is the best solution in this space.
Okay. So again, as I mentioned before, I mean, it's built on SAP Business One. And so when we talk about that as the starting point, that gives us a very robust, system to start with. It's, it's deployed in, several 100,000 customers around the world. It's SAP's largest product by number of customers. And so on its own, it's a very strong product, even if it didn't do anything for the commercial cleaning industry. So it's going to handle all of your accounting. It's a fully integrated system. So it's doing your invoicing, recurring invoicing and special invoicing. It also has, inventory management. So if you're managing your own inventory, if you're a big enough commercial cleaner, you might have your own warehouse where you're buying things into your warehouse and then moving them out to your different locations. And again, all the inventory at the locations can be managed within there. Again, so it's a full functioning ERP system. So it's managing your purchasing, your inventory, if you're doing any kitting or any kind of, assembly of any sort, all that kind of stuff can be managed within the SAP Business One product. And then on top of that, we built additional features that make it, again, more custom to the commercial cleaning industry. So we improved how the recurring invoicing works. If you use third-party vendors for doing some of your cleaning work, there's also a real nice feature in there where we can record what your vendors are doing, and so at the end of a given month, you basically can punch a button, and it will basically go through all of the invoices that have been created for your customers, determine what of that work was done by your third-party vendors, and automatically create the payable to your vendor. And that's and for some of our clients that use a lot of third-party vendors, that just saves a ton of time, because currently they have to wait till they get the invoices from the vendor. Then they have a little negotiation as to how accurate that is, and they really don't have any way on their own end of tracking it. So we get to track it on our end and say, hey, this is what we think we owe you. Then the negotiation goes much smoother because we have lots of documentation that that shows what work was performed. So that's those are the main functions within kind of the back office piece of it. Then we feed into that the labor tracking. So, and so obviously if you have your own employees, working these jobs, labor tracking is a big deal. The cost of those people is a big deal. We can feed that information into SAP in a couple of different ways. We can either do it through time records. So as people are checking in and off jobs, we know what exactly what locations they were working at and for how long. We can also feed that information in from your payroll system. But the idea is, we get that job costing information from a labor perspective as well, so that we know exactly how much labor we're putting into these jobs. The mobile aspect of it, to be able to handle the quality with the inspections and the task lists and managing everything that's going on out in the field. Again, the idea is that we can bring all that stuff together and bring all the revenue, all the cost into one place where you can see that and location by location, measure your profitability. So again, that's the other side of it too, as I mentioned. I think probably one of the other benefits of this is as I mentioned, the companies tend to grow into different things. And so if you're a commercial cleaner, the ManageClean part of what we bring to the table, certainly, we do have customers who only do commercial cleaning, and that's perfectly fine. It handles that piece of it. But if you get into distribution, if you get into building management, if you get into, e-commerce sales, we can handle all that stuff as well. So that's the growth aspect of it. So if you see yourself growing and getting into these other lines of business, you don't have to keep going out and buying more software to handle it. More point solutions, we can handle it within the solution.
No, that's perfect. Well, I appreciate your time today. I appreciate you running down and telling us, what we should be looking for before we ever get to the point where we need a solution like yours, giving us an understanding that, hey, if we're currently throwing a bunch of different point solutions at problems, and especially if those point solutions don't talk to each other, but at a certain point, even if they do, if it's taxing your administrative staff, then it's time to reach out to Jerry and talk to him and see what they can do for your business, for your growth and your future scalability. So, Jerry, thank you again. We'll have all the links to you and your company and to ManageClean coming up on posts as we post this content, and we appreciate you being on today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Ryan, appreciate the invitation, and anybody feel free to reach out, and we'd love to talk to you, and thanks again.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jerry.